Hi, welcome back to the last part of this tutorial. So in this part we are going to texture the scene, light the scene, and then we will render. But before we get started, I want to talk about something. So this scene here was rendered by using V-Ray for Cinema 4D. But because not many people have the opportunity to buy V-Ray for Cinema 4D or any third-party plugin, I decided to set up and render our scene just by using standard render of Cinema 4D. And to be honest, I think that we can achieve the same look just with standard render of Cinema 4D. Okay, another thing is that you need to have some paper texture. So if you don't have any paper texture, you can come to this link and you can download these 12 paper textures from this guy, Erno Kethelnik. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. So after you download these 12 paper textures, then we can move on. So in Cinema 4D, the first thing is that you have to make sure that the time indicator is somewhere between frame 45 to frame 60. Then we are going to add a floor to the scene. We fold this object and we bring it up, so we keep things more organized there. So with paper boss selected there, we're going to move the object on the y direction, and we make sure that it's sitting on the floor. And now we are going to add a camera. So click the camera here, and to see through the camera, we are going to click this button here. So now we go to the object and we change the focal length to 80 millimeters. And now we have to reposition the camera. Okay, the reason why I'm changing the focal length to 80 millimeters is because it gives that kind of a isometric look. So it makes this object look like miniature. So if I switch back to perspective view, you can see that this boss is looking like real boss. I mean size-wise. If I switch back to this camera, it's going to look like a toy. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now we go and create our new material, actually the first material. So we go create, new material, we open that material, and we are going to call this paper. We're going to switch up the reflectance because we don't want to see any reflection or any specular on this material, because we are going for that kind of a cardboard look. Okay, so on the color channel for the texture, we're going to use one of these textures. But one thing that I noticed was that only the last three were seamless texture. So what seamless texture means is that, for example, if this texture gets to repeat on our scene, we're not going to see the joints, which is very good. So I suggest to use one of these. So last three. I'm going to use the paper texture 10. It's going to ask me if I want to make a copy. I'm going to say no. So we should have also something for bump, because bump will help a lot to make our scene look more realistic. But these textures don't come with bump channels. But it's very easy to create something for bump. So all we have to do is to open the Photoshop, and we are going to open the same texture that we are using for the color channel. In my case, it's going to be paper texture 10. And now we have to make sure that this texture is black and white. So we are going to apply black and white adjustment layer. Also, we're going to apply levels. And now by tweaking those arrows here, we increase the contrast and we create something like this. So basically, we are done with this. So all we have to do now is to go File, Save As. We choose the format to be PNG. We're going to keep the same name. Only at the end, we're going to add underscore bump. Okay, so now we jump back to Cinema 4D. We activate the bump channel and we bring that texture. Again, it's going to ask me if I want to make a copy. I'm going to say no. Okay, so now we apply the same texture, same material on the floor, also on the paper bus. Okay, we are going to activate interactive render region so that we get this kind of nice preview here. Also, I'm making this window a little bit bigger. So to light the scene, we are going to use physical sky. So let's add physical sky to the scene. And physical sky is very powerful, but it does not work quite well if we don't apply Global Illumination. So let's go to the render settings and we right click here and we choose Global Illumination. So as soon as we apply Global Illumination, as you can see, our scene is going to look completely different. It's looking quite good actually. Okay, so close the render settings. And now, as I said, physical sky is very powerful. So if we go, for example, to time and location, here we can change the date, time, and the city. So November is a very cold month, so let's change this to something like July, and let's see what we have. So as you can see, our scene is looking very bright. So to make it look a little bit darker, we're going to change the time to something like 15 and see what we have. Okay, still is very bright. So let's go to something like 18 and see what we have. I think 18 is looking very good. The only issue is that the shadow is facing this way, and I kind of like how the shadow was here. But now if I change the time from 18 to something like 20, we are going to lose that look, and actually it's going to look very dark. And still the shadow is not doing the same thing what we have here. So let's bring the time back to 18, 15, and now instead of changing the time, we are going to change the position of that object. But now if I rotate this object, it's going to cause us little problems. So if I rotate this guy, for example, this way, we're gonna fix the shadow, but the problem will be that our animation is going to be messed up, as you can see here. So instead of that, I'm gonna undo this step now. Instead of that, I'm gonna select that object, and I'm gonna hit Alt-G to create a group. So this null, or this group, has no keyframe whatsoever. So that's why if I rotate now this guy that way, now the animation should be fine. Okay, but now we have to reposition the camera. And I kind of like to rotate this null, and as I rotate this null, to rotate also the camera. So let me undo this step now. Okay, I'm gonna unfold this null, and I'm gonna bring also the camera inside of this null. And one more thing, make sure that you are on the frame 60. Okay, so now I'm gonna switch to 4 views, so maybe it's more easy for you to see what I'm doing. So now if I select the null, and if I rotate the null, you can see that I'm rotating the paper bus, also the camera as well. So now I just need to find a good position for the shadow, and I think it's looking very good. Maybe just a little bit more. We have to rotate just a little bit more and see what we have. Yeah, I think it's looking good. And now another issue is that we are not seeing any paper texture. And the reason is because the size of the texture is very small. So for example, if I select the floor and the material, and if I switch to texture mode, you can see that the size of the texture is very small. So now to scale this, we select the material here, and we increase the length view to something like 600. Also length will be 600 as well. So let's see what we have now. Okay, I think the bump is very high, so let's open the paper texture, and we are going to decrease the strength of the bump to something like 10%. Let's see what we have. I think now it's looking good. So now we have to scale the texture also for the paper bus. So first select the material here and change the projection to cubic. So as you can see, the texture is very small, and I kind of like to have the texture same size as this object. So to do that, all we have to do is to right click here and click fit to object, and we're going to click yes, and now as you can see, the texture is the same size as the object. So let's see what we have now. Still we are not seeing any detail of the paper on the bus. So maybe we should select the material, and we should increase the length view to 200. Also the length will be 200 as well. Let's see what we have. Okay, now as you can see we have some paper details there. Okay, another issue is that inside the bus is looking very dark, and I'm not sure if it's looking good, so let's open the render settings, and we are going to increase the gamma and to see if we can make that part a little bit brighter. I think now it's very bright, so maybe let's bring this down to something like 1.5. Still is very bright, so maybe 1.3. Now I think it's looking good. So now we have to make sure that when this paper bus leave the scene, we don't see any shadow. So we bring the time indicator to the frame 90 and we see if we have any shadow. So as you can see, we have shadow here. So to fix this, we're gonna switch to 4 views. We're gonna select the paper bus. We're gonna switch to model mode and move tool. Then we're gonna move this guy on Z direction like so. And let's see what we have. As you can see now, we don't see the shadow no more. So we select that object, we go to the coordinates, and we add a keyframe on the Z direction. Okay. So now all we have to do is to go to the render settings. We go to the output, and here we can specify the size. So we're gonna render this 800 with 800. So that is going to be as a square. We make sure that the frame rate is 30 frames per second, and we are going to render all frames, so from 0 to 90. We're gonna switch off the multipass. We're gonna go to the anti-aliasing, and we will change this to best. And then we will go to save. We're gonna change the format to QuickTime Movie, and we have to click the options so that we make sure all the settings are good. So as you can see, the frames are 30 frames per second. Quality is best, so everything is looking fine. We click OK, and here we can specify the path where we want to save this. I'm going to save this on paper bus tutorial, and I'm going to call this paper bus 02. I'm going to click save, and now all we have to do is to click this button here and to wait for the render to be done. So I'm going to pause the video now, and after the render is done, we're gonna see what we have. So I see you guys in a bit. Okay, so welcome back. As you can see, the render is done now, and basically that's it, guys. The only thing left is I'm going to make sure to save this file as incremental. And yeah, if you want to learn more about me, you can visit my personal website, plasticpistols.com, where you can find some other tutorials as well. So until the next one, take care, have fun.